But I'm feeling it. These two players are feeling it too. They seem to have brought teams that have been bringing them a lot of success in today's matches, and hopefully from one of these players that's going to continue.
Yeah, we'll see exactly kind of how they end up matching up over the course of this game. Definitely some interesting teams, I think it's safe to say, although every team kind of comes a little bit differently as we play these ones out. I think both players, as I take a sneak peek ahead, certainly have something, one kind of select Pokemon that definitely makes it a little more exciting for me, Pokemon that I'm interested to see. Team previews up and the secrets are out. My favorite Pokemon exposed right there.
And what Pokemon would that be?
Well, I really like Crobat and I really like Dialga. Both of them, I think, are fantastic choices. I talked a little bit about Crobat earlier with Gabby, and it's certainly one of those Pokemon that it does a job. It has a very specific job to do. Shut down your opponent or set up Tailwind. You kind of pick whichever one you want. I think when you look over at Trevor's team, something like setting up the Tailwind is going to be very important here. We do have an interesting match of the restricted Pokemon. Groudon alongside a Rayquaza facing off against a Kyogre and Dialga. So using restricted Pokemon on Dialga, definitely an interesting choice. It's not everyone's first choice, it's not top of the list, but it's certainly got some offensive prowess when it needs to.
It's definitely a viable choice here, and you're seeing that these players are taking a little bit more time. Trevor taking a little bit more time here than Joseph. Joseph seems to know exactly what the game plan is against this matchup, and going into game one, it's going to be really important for both of these players to get as much information as possible, especially because a lot of the mechanics of their teams revolve around the priority, the speed. You have to know where you stand with the other player's Pokemon.
Yeah, and I think both these trainers have kind of one established lead for their team that they probably want to pull out. I mean, they've got other options, but usually when you go into these sets, there's something that you're comfortable with, you want to play with early on. The leads will be taking the field right now. Tapu Koko and Rayquaza from Joseph facing off against Salamence and Tapu Koko. So it's a Tapu Koko mirror, essentially, both of them on that side, but the player's different choice comes in the Dragon-type Pokemon of choice. Of course, both of them can Mega Evolve, but then the damage outputs certainly become a little bit different. Salamence did land an Intimidate, which could prove to be important.
Definitely could, especially because we've seen a lot of players go ahead and Mega Evolve very early on just to get those extra stat increases and buff their Pokemon a little bit within the match. Going into this first turn here, do you target down the damage dealer or do you target down the Tapu Koko?
It's going to be a tough call. I think the Dragons kind of match up in a very interesting way against each other. In traditional kind of knowledge, as dragons beat other dragons, so whichever one is quicker
right.
definitely gets the win there. But these Pokemon usually don't carry a Dragon-type move. There's not room for it, and there's better coverage to take with you in these. The Rayquaza does leave the field just in case, definitely giving a lot of respect over to the Salamence, which will immediately Mega Evolve. As soon as the Mega Evolution has happened, though, we're followed up by a Z move.
It is going to be a Z move from the Tapu Koko, and now Tapu Koko is figuring out what it wants to target down with that Twinkle Tackle. Gonna dazzle us away a little bit here as that Tapu Koko goes in for the move, and it's gonna be onto the opposing Tapu Koko on Joseph's side.
Yeah, well, the Tapu Koko known for using a Z move to take big knockouts as soon as possible. It is gonna be Joseph's Tapu Koko hanging on, and in response, it's gonna be a Twinkle Tackle.
We got double Twinkle Tackles here in the very first turn of this
Here's
game.
the thing. Joseph has a better target in Salamence. If he goes for that, it's an easy knockout. If he goes after the other Tapu Koko, I want to see what it does. It's not going to be, though. And Salamence, don't really think that's going to have much of a chance there.
Wow.
Immediately removed from play. That Tapu Koko on Joseph's side, clinging on with a singular hit point, was able to retaliate, and he's carved out a Pokemon advantage, but not by much in the health.
I mean, Joseph's got to feel really good about that, removing one of the big threats from Trevor's composition here, now forcing Trevor to come out with the Dialga that we were so interested in.
Yeah, the Dialga's such an interesting Pokemon because it has a couple of kind of good things going for it. First of all, it's very, very bulky. You know, it has not always the best typing, you know, particularly in this format with a lot of coverage for something like ground-type moves. You know, a lot of people can hit it on that offensive side. But the big thing for it here is it has a move pool that is so wide and so varied. It can hit so many different things, and bringing it against this Ferrothorn probably makes it a little bit of a giveaway that it does have an answer to that, because now that Salamence is gone, you're going to have to start answering that very, very quickly. Ferrothorn wants to see what's ahead.
Yeah, so we'll go for the protect. Joseph's going to play it a little bit safe here. Volt switch from his own Tapu Koko that's hanging on by a thread right now. Going to do a little bit of chip damage into Dialga, but really what it's looking for right now is just a little bit of protection to be used a little bit later. See what other threats that Trevor's going to be able to bring and make sure that Tapu Koko might be there to answer it.
Well, interestingly enough, we do see that Joseph's Tapu Koko moves before Trevor's in this instance, so it does mean that they have a speed that's identical, and that means that that Twinkle Tackle exchange early on was so fortunate that Joseph managed to cling on with that singular hit point. He does bring Groudon in, which could cause a problem for Trevor, depending on what his Tapu Koko has opted to do here. Something like a Volt Switch does mean it's going to be stuck in. Tapu Koko revealing U-turn, so it doesn't get caught against his opposing Groudon.
That's a really interesting choice. We just saw Volt Switch, which is one of the moves that we typically associate with Tapu Koko. So seeing that U-turn is one of the just random techs that we've really seen here. It's surprising. Ooh. And wow, gonna bring out Kyogre.
Yeah, that makes this problem very difficult for Joseph. I mean, we were talking earlier about how kind of keeping control of that weather is there. And bringing U-turn on Tapu Koko now means he can guarantee the switch into Kyogre, even against the Groudon.
Yes.
Usually they have the problem of, yeah, Volt Switch can't hit it, so if you protect the partner, you can't get out. But in this case, he's shown an interesting adaptation, which means he does now have the Kyogre in there, and immediately the Fire-type attacks from Groudon, not gonna happen.
No, they are not. So now Joseph needs to really adjust his strategy here going into this next turn. Kyogre putting out that weather pressure. Dialga, you have no idea what it has in its move pool right now, and you don't know what kind of threat it poses to your own Pokemon.
Yeah, we'll see exactly kind of how this one comes to the fore. Bringing in the rain there, certainly an interesting choice because the Fire-type attack from Dialga, my apologies for earlier, not going to be able to hit, but it did need to keep his stuff safe. So Dialga does reveal a move, and this Ferrothorn's probably in a really good position right now. Bringing in that Kyogre over on Trevor's side, actually going to keep Ferrothorn really safe and give it so many opportunities to just power whip, try and wear down this Kyogre with really big hits. We'll see if he's going to be able to do that. This Groudon, though, not scared at all of the Kyogre, wants to just Earth Power before it may be taken off the field very quickly.
Gets a massive amount of damage onto Dialga, but unfortunately that Flamethrower is still not going to do too much. Surprising that Trevor is actually not going to stray away from trying to use the Flamethrower, even though he knows that the rain is going to stop it.
Well, I think what he was expecting there was something like the switch to Rayquaza, maybe, so the airlock would allow him to do that. But that's not going to be the case. Joseph does give up his Groudon, but he must feel like the position is well worth it for him in this instance. Getting a good amount of damage down on Kyogre, a good amount of damage down on Dialga. Even though the Pokemon count is level, he has brought both these Pokemon into a very easy and feasible knockout range for something like the Rayquaza. The only difference right now is they're down to 3 Pokemon. Joseph's Tapu Koko is absolutely clinging on with a singular hit point, and we are going to see that the Tapu Koko on Trevor's side has a lot more health. So that's the big difference, I think, right now. But both these Pokemon very low could get tidied up with ease.
Especially because we know that it's a speed tie between the two Tapu Kokos as well. It's going to really come down to the wire on those last couple of turns if it is going to be a Koko matchup here. But Mega Evolution coming out from Joseph's Rayquaza. Going to reset the weather here now as well. Yep,
the Rayquaza knows it can do with the Dialga, though. Immediately Earth powering it, so that's Ferrothorn feeling real safe as this turn carries on.
Dialga going to get taken out of the fight here now. That Flamethrower pressure is off the table here, and Trevor's going to have to find another way to be able to deal with that Ferrothorn. A lot of damage, though, going onto the Rayquaza, and that's going to be a clean knockout with that critical hit.
Yeah, that's not what you want to see at all right there. Definitely a problem there. If this power whip hits, it does not. It falls short, and this game has just slipped so quickly away from Joseph. He's done everything right, but the critical hit and the miss there certainly going to be causing a problem. This Tapu Koko may be given an opportunity, it may just not, it may just lose out in the speed tie against Trevor's Tapu Koko, and I think a lot of pressure right now on this Ferrothorn to do the work.
Might see some protects coming out here too, just to try to read some of those finishing blows and kind of bring them off the table. But nope, it's gonna be a concede here. Trevor's gonna take this first one, and now moving into game 2, what kind of adjustments do you think we need to see from Joseph's side of the board, if any? Because it really looked like he had a strong handle of that game.
There were some very interesting choices there. The victory actually landing over on Joseph's side there. The end game screen giving that one away.
Oh.
You know, it's a tough one because answers to the Ferrothorn were limited. after that Dialga went down. So certainly interesting to see these teams in full flow. Honestly, I think if Joseph doesn't receive the critical hit on his Rayquaza right there, the game is comfortably his. And that critical hit, you know, ignoring the Delta Stream ability, which does reduce the damage there, certainly very, very important. So we'll see what adaptations both these trainers make. I think this is definitely the first game I've seen in the whole kind of tournament so far where big hits have just been thrown around every single turn. There was nothing but the gas pedal for these trainers. No brakes, no real stopping, not too many switches. There was a couple, obviously, with the Volt Switch and U-turn. But overall, both trainers just trying to throw as much damage down as quickly as possible.
I mean, you talk about the gas pedal, and really has been the name of the game here. Trainers trying to go as hard and as quickly as possible in order to try to clean up these matches, and it's resulted in some very, very fast rounds for a lot of players. But now we're moving into game 2.
We'll see if we get the same kind of paced game. I think a lot of trainers, when they have these teams that just go all the way from the initial kind of get-go in a game, it's hard to slow down, and once you're down to 3 Pokemon, those switching options do get limited a little bit. So we'll see if that plays into those strategies. Maybe trainers trying to hold on. We're going to see the leads changing up a little bit on one side of the field. It's going to be the same lead from Trevor. It's going to be Tapu Koko and Salamence, and then Crobat and Tapu Koko over on Joseph's side.
Crobat, that is not a Pokemon that we were able to see within game 1. And we were talking about this before the match actually started, where the Crobat's really there to be able to set up that Tailwind. So maybe Joseph felt like he needed, the adjustment that he needed to make was to ensure some of his Pokemon moving first.
Yeah, we'll see if Crobat's Tailwind is going to be important. I mean, it's one of those things where if you can exchange the Tailwind and then get knocked out, you're going to be in a really good position. And it's going to be a bit of an ask. Some Salamence, though, do carry Tailwind, so they may be able to just match it immediately. Not this turn, though, as we do see a Protect from the Salamence.
Ooh, Tapu Koko going for a Thunderbolt into the Crobat slot. Going to do a lot, and it's actually going to be a knockout. So now that Tailwind potential, if that was what that Crobat was actually kitted with, is no longer there. And now this Tapu Koko is free to be able to get off one of its Twinkle Tackles.
I think it's going to Twinkle Tackle towards the Salamence, and that Protect could be so valuable there as well. So we'll see if this Protect comes to the fore.
Yeah,
it is going to be important. It's not going to be anywhere near the knockout. And losing that Crobat without setting up anything in the Tailwind department. The Crobat, interestingly, not holding the Focus Sash, certainly an interesting one there. So we'll see exactly if losing that Pokemon early without it setting up a Tailwind is going to end things for Joseph.
Well, now we've got the Battle of the Dragons right now on the field. Joseph having to bring out that Rayquaza in that Crobat's stead, and really has to pump out the damage here. Fortunately, not going to have that Tailwind help, but there's a lot of damage potential. Yeah,
I mean, Trevor still has access to the Twinkle Tackle of his own, right? Like, he still has access to just Twinkle Tackle this Rayquaza completely out of the game, and that could really make things dicey for him. Of course, Tapu Koko on Joseph's side does have access to a Fairy-type move, Dazzling Gleam, the most probable choice there, just being able to, try and get some damage down on the Salamence. That said, once it's spread, it's probably not going to be enough. So I think if Joseph is going to kind of get back into this game, things are going to have to slow down.
I've just slowed down a little bit, but Trevor's not letting up on that gas. It is going to be Mega Salamence now taking on its form and matched by the Mega Rayquaza now on Joseph's side.
Yeah, both these Mega Pokemon causing huge troubles. We do know that, of course, the Rayquaza has access to the Life Orb. We saw that in Game 1, able to do a lot more damage. That is also going to protect the Salamence, interestingly enough. He's going to land a big Extreme Speed on this Tapu Koko, boosted so much by this Life Orb, but I think it knows he's probably going to be knocked out for his troubles right here, as Tapu Koko over on Trevor's side, immediately going for a Twinkle Tackle.
Twinkle Tackle will maybe find its mark onto that, maybe the Rayquaza. We'll see what it decides to go for, and it is going to be that Mega Rayquaza.
That's an easy trade to make. That puts you at 2 Pokemon to 4, essentially. Yes,
wow.
The interesting thing here is going to be if Joseph can level it up right now. He has to land a really big Dazzling Gleam here, and if it's not a double knockout, I think this game may have just slipped from him. We'll see the Tapu Koko and the Salamence. He's got it with a critical hit, just making sure that Salamence is felled, and that Extreme Speed being so important. So Joseph leveling this up 2-2. And this Tapu Koko on his side of the field feeling so good about its play right now. The last Pokemon is going to be very important for Joseph, and it's going to be interesting to see if Trevor has an answer in those two that he hasn't revealed in the slightest yet.
Well, Trevor's last couple of Pokemon here are going to be Kyogre and Dialga, that dynamic duo that was able to put out so much damage in Game 1.
This is a slight issue. Purely because we saw in game number 1 that the Dialga wants to hit the Ferrothorn with the flamethrowers. Flamethrower is the best way, essentially, to deal with Ferrothorn.
Yes.
But he's got it next to a Kyogre, so he's not going to be able to use those attacks. And honestly, I think this Tapu Koko is going to be an interesting position. Of course, Dialga has so many coverage options. Things such as Earth Power are always going to be good, and that's going to be able to deal with the Tapu Koko in a very good way. But if this Tapu Koko can put down some good damage, we could end up in an interesting position if Tapu Koko could maybe land something on this Kyogre. We're in an interesting game. The biggest concern here, and it's very strange, is that Joseph kind of needs Kyogre to stick around for as long as possible.
Yes.
Because he needs that to keep his Ferrothorn safe from Flamethrower. As soon as that's removed, that's kind of game over for him, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, Trevor's going to be helping out just a little bit, protecting that Kyogre to ensure that it sticks around for one of those extra turns. Earth Power, though, onto the Tapu Koko will knock it out. Super effective, and now Trevor really only has that Ferrothorn to deal with.
Yeah, but the Ferrothorn's pretty safe from the plays right now. I mean, there's no way to stop this rain from coming down, so getting one Leech Seed down on the Dialga is important, and if he manages to find a turn where he can land the additional kind of Leech Seed on Kyogre and stick around, I mean, the problem is Kyogre does so much damage in the rain. His fight back is going to be all on Ferrothorn right now, desperately trying to get Leech Seeds. But, you know, if he does end up just Leech Seeding all the way, this is probably the way to do it. Ferrothorn not protecting this turn. Kyogre's Water Spout will just keep going, and we'll see just how much it does to this Pokemon. Not very effective, but he does try and land a Power Whip. No Leech Seed coming through this turn.
It is does barely anything to that Dialga. It is a blow in the wind right now. In fact, that Leech Seed did more damage than that Power Whip did to that Dialga.
I think if I was Joseph there, I'd have tried to land the second Leech Seed, so at least he could have protected the next turn, healed up, you know, got that double kind of protection there from the Leech Seed, or the double healing and the protection for 2 turns, and just to see exactly where it goes. But, you know, he's still in a position to start healing, and also, as he Leech Seeds, the Water Spout's damage output would be slowly reduced, and that makes things easier and easier. The Dialga's already ahead of how much damage it's taken, so I don't think he's going to be able to take a combination of Water Spout and Earth Power again, and I think this one's going to be kind of all over.
Well, the weather is balancing out just a little bit here. We're still going to have that rain pouring down on top of the battlefield, but we still have a 2 versus 1. Dialga now going for an Earth Power again this turn, and Ferrothorn really doesn't have an ability to protect. It's very risky to do so, and you really want to get some damage out there if you are Joseph, but that Water Spout's going to be enough to finish it off, and Trevor takes this one home.
Yeah, I mean, that was a really comprehensive game. I think missing that Leech Seed, certainly an interesting one on how we go through those games. So, Trevor, that was, you know, an interesting enough end game. These trainers really kind of interested in exactly what the way out there was. I just think double Leech Seed was the play. I genuinely think double Leech Seed was the way to go.
Might have given Joseph a little bit of an extra chance, but honestly, that Ferrothorn wasn't doing a whole lot of damage to either of the Pokemon that were left on Trevor's side of the field, so it might have just been all it wrote, but interestingly enough.
Well, so the game 1, we saw the concede come through from Trevor's side. So
Score was wrong.
Unfortunately so, and then, you know, Trevor takes game 2 there. So we are heading to game 3. Sorry for the confusion about that one. Joe, you know, pretty quick to lock these team in within the first 30 seconds, really knowing what he has to do. It's strange that he, you know, bought Crobat and it just went down. I think bringing Crobat in the face of a Tapu Koko, they are, of course, the Tapu Koko does have the potential to just knock it out. And it did that, and I think bringing that was probably not the way to go, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah. I'm going to agree with that one. I think that it's pretty clear that a lot of Trevor's game plan is going to be putting that Tapu Koko on the field first. So definitely don't want to bring anything on Joseph's side of the field that's going to be really weak or susceptible to that kind of play. But as we move into game 3 now, we're going to see exactly what kind of adjustments were made on either side, if any, to those leads, because leads have been so important today.
Yeah, but we are going to see a change. It's Tapu Koko and a Dragon-type Pokemon once again for one side of the field there. That's going to be from Trevor's side. We're a little bit ahead of you, so apologies for ruining that surprise. But Tapu Koko stays in Joseph's lead, this time partnered up with the Groudon. Doesn't want an easy Twinkle Tackle target there. And interestingly enough, Joseph's switch over to the Groudon does mean this Dialga could be real easy to deal with. A ground-type move, very, very popular. In a how do I deal with Dialga, that answer would definitely get you top marks.
We're going to figure out whether or not Joseph has an answer to how do I deal with Dialga.
I mean, Groudon, you know, if you've got the special variety, you carry Earth Power. If you're going with the physical variety, you carry Precipice Blades. In this case, I mean, you'd love to Precipice Blades, but, you know, it may not be that way. We've seen a lot of special Groudon at this tournament so far, so we're curious to see if he gives up all the information on that one. But if, you know, he's going to start taking knockouts, again, get the foot down, just keep on going all the way through.
Going into this first turn, it's going to be really important to see whether or not you can protect those damage dealers. And of course, Joseph's going to go for the safe option, which is just completely remove it from the field, put out Rayquaza instead, and let's get that weather rolling.
Well, it's not even about that. I think it's more about keeping the Groudon safe from the Earth Power that he was seeing from the Dialga in the previous game. Tapu Koko's U-turn there does mean we're in an interesting position where nothing's getting Twinkle Tackle off the field in turn number 1. So it's really interesting to see that kind of safe play. You know, exactly where the Twinkle Tackle comes through is going to be important. But we haven't seen the move from Joseph's yet. And if he's landing a Twinkle Tackle, this could be a whole lot of damage going down. Of course, the Kyogre coming in would have been really, really nice to kind of deal with something like that Groudon, but it's not there, and it's now against an Airlock Rayquaza, so not the biggest deal. To see where that one comes through. The Twinkle Tackle, though, is coming out from Joseph's side. He absolutely loves it. Turn 1 Twinkle Tackle, let's see what we can get rid of. But the targets here, you know, both the restricted Pokemon, both rather bulky. Certainly not the easiest thing to knock out in comparison to some of his previous Twinkle Tackles.
Absolutely. I mean, it's still going to do a decent chunk of damage regardless of what that target is going to be, but it is going to be the Kyogre that just switched in here.
I like that play. I think that's really
like
good.
It too.
Yes, you would have probably dealt with the other kind of version there. And the Earth Power from Dialga will make, again, a turn 1 knockout very possible. That Tapu Koko, though, done its job. It's come in and Twinkle Tackled something, which seems to be all Joseph really wants it to do.
At least it did its job. And so now Joseph gets to focus on the other Pokemon that he's brought to be able to deal with this matchup. Groudon coming back out is going to reset the weather here, removing that Primordial Sea. And we're going to get some sunshine up in here.
Well, don't forget, Airlock's still in play because of the Rayquaza. And even on top of that, you know, he can turn it into the Delta Stream and make sure that we're in a good position there. So really kind of interesting way around this ability. This Kyogre isn't safe, and it depends exactly on just how fast this Groudon is as well. That's going to be important, because if Groudon's quicker than Kyogre, ooh, that's not what you want to see. And Kyogre's not even going to chance it. It's just going to get out of there.
Now it's going to be Salamence coming in. So you've got the Battle of the Dragons once again here. And you are going to see attack stat changes on both sides from Salamence's Intimidate. It really doesn't seem to affect either too much here. We're going to have Rayquaza go ahead and Mega Evolve, and that's going to give it an extra boost here.
Yep, Rayquaza getting its Delta Stream ability in play. So kind of all 3 of those legends that are in that nice trio together, all kind of showing off their ability. Immediately just Earth powering this Dialga. Takes it pretty well. I mean, it's a pretty bulky Pokemon, but it may have to deal with 2 of them. Groudon's going to follow up with an Earth Power of its own, and that's a lot more serious. That Dialga is removed from play with a critical hit, and the Pokemon count leveled at 3-3. Importantly, one of the restricted Pokemon, though, over on Trevor's side, has been removed from play. He's shown all his things, and this double Earth Power combination is really going to be able to hit that Tapu Koko hard. And this Delta Stream in play, you know, there's going to be some switching needed, but this Kyogre is still in a very interesting and potentially very good position. We've seen how much damage it can take. The extreme speed isn't going to be as prevalent because of those Intimidates, but now we come into a kind of very complicated, you know, maneuvering of those weather abilities. Primordial Sea coming down, so Delta Stream is gone now. The big thing, though, Joseph has 2 options to make sure Primordial Sea is not in play, and he gets to pick which one to remove and which one to save for later.
It gets a little bit tricky, though. So if Joseph does lose another Pokemon within these next few turns and is not able to get that weather reset, then that puts a lot of Trevor in the driving seat for some of this match. When you still have Kyogre available, you still might have an extra swap here. So really critical to see what's going to happen next.
Well, it's going to start with Salamence Mega Evolving. That's definitely step 1. Make sure you've got all your stats available to you. More stats means more wins. That's pretty much how this one goes. Getting nice and sizable there. Has many options to play around this. Rayquaza is just going to protect itself right now, so no switching coming through as Salamence Double Edge into that Rayquaza Protect. No damage there as Groudon immediately starts to Hidden Power. It's going to land on the Salamence. It's going to be Hidden Power Ice. It's fallen. So even if Groudon goes down, I think that's a very, very fair trade indeed. It's going to take the Water Spout and fall. And Groudon's done its piece, put in a shift, and away we go.
That's the Mega Evolution as well, now getting removed from Trevor's side of the board, and now Trevor can only rely on that Kyogre and that Tapu Koko. So that scenario that we talked about before that would have been really difficult for Joseph is now difficult for Trevor.
Yeah, I mean, this Rayquaza is in a very interesting position. It does have to try and deal with this Tapu Koko, but in the same vein, it really wants to deal and just knock out this Kyogre. Joseph revealing his 4th Pokemon. It's been so good to him today, securing him the win in game number 1 of this. That Ferrothorn, going to be so tough. The Kyogre's taken a lot of damage already. Potentially could get caught with like Extreme Speed Power Whip, or Power Whip could just get there on its own, and then when that point gets reached, if Kyogre's gone, this Tapu Koko could just get felled. Tapu Koko is going to start the turn with a Twinkle Tackle, though, and you know, really needs to start dealing damage. If it does get brought down to Ferrothorn on its own, it's going to be a long slog, but Joseph certainly has the right Pokemon for the matchup.
Absolutely. Well, this Twinkle Tackle is going to get this round off to a dazzling start here. Gonna dance a little bit with that Rayquaza, and that's going to completely take it out of this fight. Now, it is an even score for both of these players here, last 2, but wow, that's going to be a nice bit of damage there onto the Ferrothorn.
He's been fishing for the burn there. He really needed a burn there, so the Power Whip wouldn't do anything. But this Ferrothorn's going to be able to start setting up for the end game real nicely with a first Leech Seed over on Kyogre. That's going to be really rather important to see exactly what it can do with that kind of slow and steady play. We'll see exactly where it gets to in this one. Kyogre getting whittled down. Its Water Spout going to be doing such limited amounts of damage as this kind of turn goes on. So it is forced to Scald. A burn would really help with some of the Leech Seed recovery, but as long as Joseph slows the game down a little bit, I think, tries to land, you know, 2 Leech Seeds in there, he could be in a really good position. He's going to take many attacks for his troubles, though.
He is going to take quite a few now. Ferrothorn is burned!
Yep.
That's exactly what Trevor was looking for here in order to try to stop some of this extra health gain, but it is going to be a double Leech Seed. I guess Joseph learned a little bit from that last match.
Yeah, double Leech Seed is going to be a big deal here. Look at how much health it recovers each time and then how much it loses to the burn. It's still going to be a net positive, especially with something like this Kyogre in play. It actually gains a large amount of health even through the burn. The big thing here as well, the Tapu Koko's damage output even lower now. That Thunderbolt wasn't doing much to begin with, but the Electric Drain's gone. At least you got the burn down, but right now, as long as Joseph just takes his time, doesn't do anything silly, protects like this are going to be able to get him into a fantastic position unless Trevor finds one of those windows and lands a critical hit.
This was where it came down to in game 2 for Joseph. Joseph learned, was able to get that double Leech Seed. Now he's going to protect and look at this amount of health that this Ferrothorn is getting back. Trevor needs to get lucky here.
Yeah, and I mean, the big thing here as well is, I mean, Joseph can kind of try and speed it up a little bit this game. Just by being able to land some, you know, an attack on Tapu Koko wouldn't be bad, bring it down, and just speed up that Leech Seed damage. Kyogre's really struggling with the Scalds right now. I mean, Ice Beam's certainly an option to see, you know, but it's burned, it's got a status condition, so that's the one it's stuck with for the rest of the game. We are going to see him just keep on going, keep on trying. That's a good amount of damage.
It is.
That certainly helps as Ferrothorn does decide it's time for me to just start winning this game. I'm going to get damage down on Tapu Koko, and now I'm going to start recovering once again with my Leech Seeds.
It's coming under the wire. It's getting real close. And
I wouldn't call this endgame a thriller, to be quite honest with you. Slow and steady wins the race. I've heard that one before. And this is definitely the way to do it. I mean, yes, he's still kind of fluctuating around that half health level. But a protect here, you know, Kaiga goes lower, Tapu Koko gets lower. Only realistically needs to take one more turn. And the game is going to be forfeited. He knows exactly what's coming here. And Joseph Ugarte moving on to 6-0. He needs a good performance this weekend to get the Worlds invite, and that's certainly one way to do it. Showing off really good offensive play, and then backing it up with some smart defensive play at the end.
We've seen this from a lot of players as well as we've looked at some of the matches today, having some little bit of that insurance policy against tough matchups. So that Ferrothorn definitely doing that job there for Joseph. Also seeing a little bit of Shedinja that's been happening, you know, kind of across the board as well. So players are definitely putting all bets on the table right now for this North American International Championships.
Yeah, it's been certainly interesting to see him. Ferrothorn, not one of the Pokemon I was expecting to see as much. I felt like there were other options. There were definitely better options. I mean, for Steel types, you've got a multitude of different options. We saw one on Trevor's team in the Dialga. But he played it so well. He came close at the end of game 2.
So close.
You know, the end of game 1 was certainly, you know, the fact it was there forced Trevor into that forfeit. He saw that. He knew he wasn't going to be able to do enough damage. And I think with kind of the round time on his mind, he just wants to move on, get going with game 2. So to see that kind of come through, you know, when he saw it at the end of game 3, he must have thought, here we go again. I can't believe it. It's still there. And Kyogre and Tapu Koko are probably two of the worst Pokemon on his team to try and deal with such a strong, like, bulky Pokemon that not only can sit there, but can also start to heal itself up over every single time.
Well, it's not over yet for Trevor. So even though he's going to have to take this one on the chin, he's still sitting at a respectable record for today as we enter into the last couple of rounds of Swiss here at the North American International Championships. Joseph's feeling pretty good, though, about being able to continue his undefeated record here on day 1, but I think that Trevor has a really good thing going for him, looking at that team composition and how he played that match.
Yeah, no, I thought that team was really good. I thought, you know, Dialga is certainly one of those Pokemon that I like because of its coverage. There were some very strange plays, you know, where he maybe was getting a little bit too ahead of himself, thinking, hey, he's going to bring Rayquaza in to try and deal with this Kyogre.
Absolutely.
I'm going to try and weave in a Flamethrower, something like that. And, you know, it was just smart play from Joseph not to kind of give that up to him. You know, and there was a lot of positions where I think if the Kyogre wasn't on the field, that game would have changed so much. But the fact it was out and he couldn't Flamethrower Ferrothorn just became a little bit taxing for him. And I think the second time his Flamethrower fizzled out, he must have been like, you know what, I'm done with this, I'm over this. And that's why we saw the forfeit at the end there from him. So, you know, once you get there, he adapted well in game 2. I really liked Trevor's changes in game 2. I thought the exchange of Twinkle Tackles was fun on kind of both instances. I really enjoyed that. I think the addition of Fairy MZ to Tapu Koko's roster of things it can do for big damage is certainly interesting. And there was a perfect game for both trainers to have it, right? Salamence and Rayquaza.
Absolutely.
Certainly the prime targets for it.
Yeah, we've definitely saw some great plays from both of these players and some things that I think they're going to adjust moving into future rounds as well. But today has been so exciting. We have seen everything from Como-O to Mega Lopunny to, oh my gosh, what was it that we saw? We saw Mega Medicham. There were so many interesting things that we've been able to see, and this match was no disappointment to add to that slate. But we are done with this match. We're gonna go ahead and throw it over to Anna for an interview with Joseph to talk a little bit more about that match.
Thanks, guys. I am here with Joseph. How are you feeling after that match?
I am feeling great. This is like, you know, at the past events I've been to, I feel like, you know, like I haven't really found something I was too comfortable with, but now I've like really like found a team that's working for me. So happy about that.
This is one of your first times on the big stage, right?
Yeah, actually first time. So it's really exciting. Definitely you have nerves when you go up there, but I'm really happy about it. So.
Now you said that you found something that worked for you. Tell us a little bit about your team and about this match.
Yeah, so going into this tournament, I knew that there wasn't really so much a call. It was about something that I think I wanted to have like pretty much neutral or like slightly favorable matchups versus everything. And I think like Radon was a good balance for me because I was able to find something that like I knew what to bring every single match, and I haven't had that in a team for a long time. So like, and you'd see during team select, like I clicked very fast because I knew exactly what I wanted. So it's also good as a player to be able to know exactly what you need for a matchup and how to adjust.
Some of the notable Pokemon we were looking at in that match that we maybe haven't seen a lot today are Ferrothorn, Dialga. Tell us a little bit about how those played a part.
Yeah, so the Ferrothorn is great. It's been like basically it's been carrying the entire team. But I think like Ferrothorn is like so underrated because in Ogre matchups, it's just so good. Like it can't, you saw, like it doesn't die. But yeah, the Dialga was interesting because the Dialga did make it a bit more challenging, especially with what I'm assuming is an Assault Vest because it was so bulky. It was a lot harder to kill, but I also knew like that if I could have the Ogre and the Dialga in at the same time, Ferrothorn could still win. So it's just pretty much setting up the Ferrothorn endgame, which is why I was willing to sacrifice my Rayquaza so fast, just to get both, get the endgame I wanted, pretty much.
And you did get that endgame. Congratulations on taking the match, and thank you so much for your time. Guys, remember, you can talk to us on social media using the hashtag PlayPokemon, but for right now, we're going to head over to the VGC stream.